Last night, West Ham United announced the appointment of Mark Warburton joining David Moyes' backroom staff at the club. And what a pleasant surprise that was. Emphasis on surprise. There was no rumours, there was no whispers. Complete out of the blue, the club just went, delighted to welcome Mark to the club. Hang on, what? Bloody hell, right, okay, here we go. Nobody knew this was coming. And I think this is a bit of a coup, actually. I'm a bit excited about the appointment, if you must know what I mean. You can probably tell. I think it's a really good appointment because I know quite a bit about Warburton's career. I'll do that sort of later on in the video. For those that don't wish to listen to that bit, they can disappear. But those that are interested, you can stick around. So for this reason, because essentially I think we've got a championship manager to join our backroom staff at West Ham. That's got to be good, right? But I must confess, I forgot we had a vacancy. Obviously, Stuart Pearce left, and when he did leave, it felt like a bit of a blow, a bit of a surprise. What we're going to do? Moyes has got big shoes to fill here. But I completely forgot about it because of the transfer window, because of Aguerd, Ariola, Broja. Forgot that Moyes was a man down and needed a signing of his own. I mean, pre-season starts next week. It feels like it's crept up on me really quickly. It was almost like season's finished, pre-season, new coach, new goalkeeper, new centre-back. Here we go, friendlies just round the corner. New season's really crept up on me. So yeah, Mark Warburton, David Moyes' backroom staff, and I think this, like I said, a bit of a coup, because I would argue the coaches at the club are just as important as the manager, because if you have a really good manager but the coaching team ain't anything to write home about, he's probably going to struggle. There's a lot of factors that goes into the success or lack of success as a manager at the club, and obviously the manager himself is number one, but I would strongly argue that number two is his coaching team, the people that give him advice, the people that help him. In fact, there's two examples at West Ham. One is David Moyes. Another one I'll give you is Slaven Bilic. As a fan, I think possibly the biggest reason that Slav struggled was his lack of coaching team. Now obviously one or two of them have been successful. I mean, the current Dortmund manager worked under Slaven Bilic at West Ham. But I'm pretty certain his fitness coach was a 60-year-old heavy smoker. And defensive coach, I don't even think we had one. People just assumed it was Julian Dix. Julian Dix has obviously denied he was a coaching staff. We were leaking goals left, right and centre, and there was no obvious person responsible for it under Slaven Bilic. And David Moyes, in his first tenure and the start of his second tenure, at one point he was, statistically, our worst manager in history of West Ham United. Now obviously that's going by win rate percentage. Not everybody will say that that's a fair way of judging the success of a manager, but certainly the win rate percentage, he was bottom out of all the managers we've had in our history. David Moyes is bottom. He may have been second bottom and one game away from going bottom. But anyway, at that point he obviously added to his backroom staff, turned it round, and the rest is history. We're going on to finish 6th and 7th. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, that's a bit of a criticism of Moyes, but this is actually meant to be a praise of David Moyes, believe it or not, because he's the one that's assembled the coaching team we've got. He's the one that's responsible for delegating the responsibilities. He's the one that decides if he listens to those coaches in the build up to a game, during the game. He's the one that has to listen to the advice he gets and use that advice in order to make decisions and West Ham be a success. And we have been a success under David Moyes, managing and leading the team that he's assembled. And last year he had a bit of a blow. Alan Irvine demoted himself, took up a consultancy role and moved north. So part of that backroom staff that was led by David Moyes that led us to 6th place in the Premier League, well, one of them's just left. What are you going to do? Went and got Billy McKinley, finished 7th in the Premier League. Great. So that appointment, that replacement worked. Moyes got that right. Now Stuart Pearce has left. What are you going to do? Another blow. Well, in comes Mark Warburton. And I think that's a fantastic appointment. This is credit to David Moyes because he's the one that assembles it. He's the one that has to lure these coaches to the club, keep them happy. He's the one that says to Nevin, you're in charge of set pieces. We've been really good at set pieces. So while Nevin is directly responsible for it, Moyes is the one that takes him in and gives him the responsibility. So I know a lot of people think I'm criticising Moyes here. I'm actually trying to praise David Moyes because he's the one that's in charge of that coaching team and then using what he gets out of them to make West Ham a success. And I think we have been under Moyes in this team here. So anyway, back to Mark Warburton, Championship manager and the coaching staff. Simple as that as far as I'm concerned. His last job, Championship manager at QPR. He was expected to become the Birmingham City manager under Bassini, but that takeover is dragging a little bit, struggling to get over the line. So I do wonder if there's a little bit of a link there between Sullivan, Bassini, and then Mark Warburton and the opportunity to become coaching West Ham United under David Moyes. So I do wonder if there's a little bit of a link, but I'm just guessing at this point because this is a fantastic appointment. Like I said, and I'm genuinely surprised, not just the appointment itself, but that we've got him. Like I said, it feels like a bit of a coup for me. Now what we are going to do is discuss Mark Warburton's career. Before I do that, this video is sponsored by the OneFootball app. Now, they got caught out last night. They weren't on the ball with the Warburton announcement, but nobody else was because there was no rumours whatsoever. But if it's rumours you're after around the transfer, if it's the latest on the Areola deal you're after, it's all on the OneFootball app. Links in description, get it downloaded. It's completely free. It doesn't just do mobile phones either. There's all your devices, the likes of your iPad and that. Click it, download it. Follow your team. You'll only see what you want to see. But if you're one day, you've got 10 minutes, don't mind going down a bit of a rabbit hole with the Premier League, click on the Premier League competition, click on any club, and you can read their latest news, their latest transfer rumours as well. It's a fantastic app for the football fan. It's completely free. Get it downloaded today. Link in description. Now, Mark Warburton started off at Brentford. How he got the Brentford job, I'll tell you that in a second. Actually, before I do any of that, there was a bit of an... No, we'll stick with Brentford. At Brentford, he did quite well. He finished second in League One, got them promoted to the Championship, and did well in the Championship. And the only reason he ended up leaving is because he didn't believe in the change. Now, the change from the Brentford owner was to switch to this Moneyball thing, this data-driven way of recruitment. Now, we know today that Brentford did the right thing because they've obviously got promoted to the Premier League and they've remained in the Premier League. But at the time, Warburton didn't believe in it. That's not what Warburton wanted to do. And while you could argue that Warburton made the wrong choice, you could also argue he made the right one by sticking to his principles as a manager and saying, nah, I don't want to do that. I don't believe in that. I want to be in charge of recruitment. I don't want to be led by statistics and data. It's not how I want to do it. Because Brentford didn't want a manager. Brentford wanted a head coach. Warburton was a manager. And that January transfer window it wasn't great for Brentford. And to be fair to Warburton, he made good signings at that club. Likes of Andre Gray, Stuart Dallas, who now plays for Leeds United. Warburton brought them in. And with his squad, he led them to the playoffs. They got beat in the semi-finals by Borough. And he ended up having the smallest squad in English Football League that year. The least amount of players used by any club out the 92 was Brentford with Warburton, because in January he wouldn't sanction any signings. He had this final say so. Brentford wanted to buy players using data. Warburton didn't make any signings. I think they made one signing, didn't work out, and in the end, like I said, they got to the playoffs and they got beat, so he moved on. And I don't have an issue with that. I see Warburton's tenure at Brentford as a big success, and part of the reason that Brentford are in the Premier League, he's the one that took them into the Championship. And like I said, the club have gone in the right direction. They're in the Premier League now, just not with Warburton. So off he went to Rangers. And this is where there's an error on the official website of West Ham. When I read the statement, I read it 2 or 3 times to make sure that I wasn't reading it wrong. But no, there is an error. It says that Warburton led Brentford to the Championship, correct. But then it says that he led Rangers to winning the Scottish Premiership. He didn't win the Scottish Premiership with Rangers. That was Steven Gerrard. Warburton, however, took them over when they were in the Championship, the second division, and he won the title there. He won the Challenge Cup as well. He won the double that season. And while it was a good season, that's all it can be, and that's good at best. I would have backed me or you to go to Rangers with that squad and win the Championship that season. It's by far the best squad in the league, by far the biggest budget. They had a bigger budget in Championship than some clubs in the Premiership. So it wasn't a difficult gig to do. The difficult part was going to be when you get back to the Premiership, getting straight back up to the top and challenging Celtic. And they didn't manage. Warburton didn't manage. They were third in the Premier League at the time of his, let's just say, him leaving Rangers. I'll get on to that. They were third behind Aberdeen and Celtic, but they were like 30 points behind. They were miles away. Lost the Scottish Cup as well. Hibs beat them in the final of the Scottish Cup. They did beat Rangers though. Rangers beat Celtic in the semi-final though, with Warburton as manager. Anyway, yeah, then another surprise came. There's a lot of surprises where Mark Warburton's involved. Rangers announced that Warburton and David Weir, who was with him at Brentford, went with him to Rangers and is now at Brighton, I think. Weir was there as well, and Rangers basically announced that they'd both resigned. Now, after that, and still to this day, both of them are adamant they didn't resign. They were actually sacked by Rangers. So there's almost still a little bit of mystery over what happened at Rangers with Mark Warburton. Now, he ended up at Nottingham Forest. I don't know anything about his time at Forest. He wasn't there for a long, 10 months. I know nothing about it. I'm not going to speak about it. I'm just going to move on to his latest job, which was at QPR. Now, I see this as a success. If you're watching this as a QPR fan, feel free to disagree with everything I'm going to say. But I think he did well at QPR. Left at the end of the season. His contract came to an end. So while he's sort of not sacked, but kind of sacked, his contract expired and he just didn't get a new one. Now, again, when that happened, I was a little bit surprised. I've seen quite a bit of QPR and I thought he was doing a good job. But since they've gone and hired Michael Beale, I think it's probably the right thing to do, because I think Michael Beale has the potential to go on and be a top manager. The brains behind Steven Gerrard, Michael Beale. So there's a lot of Rangers connections in this video, isn't there? Beale was with Gerrard at Rangers, done really well, went to Villa, and a lot of people, like of Emi Martinez and that, say that Beale does everything for Steven Gerrard. He does everything. So it's a huge loss for Gerrard. He has done well. He's gone and got the Blackpool manager. But now, it'll be interesting to see how Beale gets on at QPR. But I think what Warburton did, when he took over from Steve McLaren, they were flirting with relegation. They were just outside that relegation zone too much under Steve McLaren. So Warburton's come in, when they were down the bottom of the Championship, he's had to replace Eberechi Eze. He went to Crystal Palace, lost by far the best player in the Championship. And then he's done it with not very much money. Now, QPR are very well run these days, with Hughes there, Les Ferdinand there, very well run. They spend within their means. They're very financially switched on and savvy. But that's a struggle for a manager, because Warburton had one of the lowest wage bills in the Championship. A decimated squad to deal with, didn't have a big squad, had to use sort of players from the academy, players that have been released from other academies, some experienced players as well, had a real mix. But I felt throughout his whole career and at QPR, he's played good football. It can be a bit slow, can be a bit possession based at times, and it's a bit tippy-tappy, as Sam Allardyce would call it. Gonzo wouldn't like it, let's put it that way. But I don't mind. I enjoy football being played like that. So I watched a bit of QPR. I didn't mind watching QPR. I thought he'd done well. And at the start of last season, obviously this is his third season at QPR now, and he's taken them into what I would call a pretty safe top half table side in the Championship. Start of last season, I thought it was almost too good to be true, and it probably raised the bar a bit too high at QPR. But they had a shot at the playoffs last season. They really did. Their best chance for years. And they completely blew it. I think they had 3 wins in 20 games or something like that. Something really horrendous. Which is probably the reason that Warburton's been let go. But I think he's done well. And I think he's almost been a victim of his own success last season. And there was also circumstances around that. Chair went to African Nations, probably their best player. Lyndon Dykes was injured. Willock was injured. They had a lot of injuries to deal with as well. And all sort of factored in. Then, when the managers got this, I'm out of contract there in the season, and there's been no contract negotiations, I often think, well, where's the motivation for the manager? Where's the incentive for the players to some extent? You saw it with Eddie Howe at Bournemouth, when everybody knew Eddie Howe was leaving Bournemouth and then getting relegated. I think, well, that's got to be a factor as to why Bournemouth got relegated. And I think Mark Warburton's contract expiring and him not getting a new one, and being quite obvious he wasn't getting a new one, has to be a bit of a factor in QPR's downfall in the second half of the season. But anyway, he left QPR. Now, part of the reason he got that Brentford job, and this is mentioned on the official West Ham website, and it is factually correct, unlike the Rangers winning the Premiership thing. What I will say about the Rangers one, though, when Steven Gerrard did win it, Gerrard was, and rightfully so in my opinion, gave a bit of a nod to the previous managers at Rangers, because he said while they may not be considered as a success at the club, they've contributed to the success today with Gerrard winning the title. And Mark Warburton's probably biggest one, or most notable one, is he's the one that brought James Tavernier to Rangers. He's the one that brought, which is arguably their best player and captain when they won the title. Warburton was the one that took him up to Ibrox. Now, the reason he got the Brentford job, and this is mentioned on the website, is Warburton founded, or created, should I say, the NextGen sort of tournament for youth teams, and this was funded by the Brentford owner, and then obviously Warburton would go on to manage Brentford. Now in that tournament you'd had the likes of Liverpool, Tottenham, Inter Milan, AC Milan, some real big heavy hitters around European football, send their youth teams there, playing a bit of a tournament, and somebody would win. Happy days. It doesn't exist anymore. They've ran for 3 seasons now, and then UEFA have introduced their equivalent essentially. So obviously the Milans and whatever will go play for UEFA rather than Mark Warburton series that he's created for London. But the interesting thing about that was Warburton would essentially, when he was at Brentford, went and signed the players from the tournament. All the players that stood out at that tournament in the youth teams, Warburton went and took them to Brentford with him. And then it's obviously, like I said, been part of the success. I think the most notable name is Alex Pritchard, who he took from Tottenham. He took other players from the likes of Sporting and that, and they went on and done well. So yeah, I just found that interesting. Like I said, don't know anything about his time at Forest, can't comment on that. But in regards to West Ham United, like I said, I think this is a bit of a coup. I'm excited by this one. I think we've got a real good, he's really well spoken. Whenever you listen to Mark Warburton doing his press conferences or whatever, he's really calm, really well spoken, football intelligent. Is that a phrase? I think you know what I mean. Really, I could listen to him all day, Mark Warburton. If he ever brings out an autobiography, he'll be, as I say, the first one to buy it. Probably won't be, but after about a week it's been released and I finally get round to it, I will purchase it and look forward to reading it. He's the manager I rate highly. And I think we've got, like I said, we've got a championship manager in the coaching team at West Ham United. And I almost want to just finish this with almost a bit of a nod to David Moyes' I guess bravery to some extent, because it's dangerous. We've seen it at West Ham, Harry Redknapp. We've seen it where it's almost dangerous having an assistant manager or coaches at your club that arguably could potentially do your job eventually. Could eventually become the West Ham manager. Perhaps Warburton isn't quite there yet, but I would never disregard Warburton being a Premier League manager in the future. A bit like Michael Beale going to QPR. I think I would expect Beale to possibly be a manager one day in the Premier League. But Moyes has brought him in, and it's quite a statement from Moyes bringing in somebody like this. I think it would almost be easier to bring in people like Kevin Nolan, who to some extent only have a job because of David Moyes. It almost rides off Moyes' coattails. Mark Warburton doesn't need to do that. He doesn't have to take this West Ham job. He would have got a championship job eventually. But he's here at West Ham, and like I said, I do think there's an element of bravery from David Moyes by bringing him to West Ham. Somebody that's footballing CV as a coach is really, really good, really impressive, and I'm really impressed by the appointment. I'm looking forward to next season more now. Sounds a bit weird saying that because we've got coaching, but I don't know, I just feel like the coaching team's just got a bit stronger today than it perhaps was last season, and the dynamic between the current coaches and then adding Mark Warburton is quite intriguing actually. I'm really looking forward to it. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're close. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I won't be here tomorrow. Charlie's doing the transfer rumours tomorrow because I'm off to Hampden to see Mr. Liam Gallagher, and I cannot wait.